Hey, I'm Todd Thompson, President and CEO of the Greater Pensacola Chamber of Commerce. And this is a real treat today to learn. We're going to be able to learn about what a Children's Services Council is and what this could potentially mean for Escambia County. This is something that we've taken an interest in at the Chamber, and our board has endorsed putting this referendum on the ballot, and the County Commission will be considering this, putting it on the ballot at their next meeting on June 16th. And it's important to the Chamber because obviously we've had a lot of conversation about education in our community, early childhood education all the way through post-secondary, and what that means to our workforce, what it means for our community, and really the business community at large. So a Children's Services Council, which we'll hear about the details of here in a moment, is a real opportunity to look at a new way of providing programs and resources that can help fill in some gaps that we're experiencing in our community. But it's something that we've been looking at for a few years, and we're now at a point where we can actually hopefully get this in front of voters and let them have a say on if they want this for our community or not. So I'm going to pass it on to Jennifer Grove with Baptist Healthcare, and also a Chamber board member, and take it away.
Great. Thank you, Todd. And thanks so much to the Chamber for giving us this opportunity to chat with what I see are many friends on the line. I do not know who 503-2125 is. But a new friend, if not an existing. So we're excited to have this opportunity. Kim and I have been in Zoom world a lot together lately to talk about this topic that is near and dear to both of our hearts. That's you. Okay, thank you, Brandy. It is a friend. And we wanted this opportunity and appreciate Todd putting it out there for Chamber members to learn a little bit more. I think many of you that are logging in today are already in our merry band of fellows who are marching in the same direction to bring this to our community. Some of you are not. So what we'll do is, as we go through the presentation, we do have a very, I would say, content-rich slide deck that Kim is going to lead us through. But as we go through, if you have questions that come to mind, please go ahead and put them in the group chat box, and we'll be watching that and responding as we go through. Anything that we don't cover in the slides that have been prepared, we will come back to at the end and have an opportunity for open dialogue. We have a lot of subject matter experts and Escambia Children's Trust loyalists in the crowd today. So when we open it up, we certainly want to hear from everybody. I would just say, open it up with some general comments. As somebody who's been working on economic and workforce development issues in Escambia County for, I don't know, 20 years now, I have to say this is one of the efforts that I am most excited about. I truly believe it to be an investment in our future. And I think about education and workforce development in two ways. First and foremost, as a citizen imperative. We want to make sure that every child that is born in Escambia County has an opportunity for a pathway to prosperity, and one that yields family-sustaining wage employment and allows them to be a contributing citizen in this community that we all love. Secondly, I think about it as a business imperative. For all of us in the business world, it's critically important that we know that there is an available supply of talent to meet our existing and future needs as organizations. And so I really think about it in both ways, and that's why I believe it lays squarely in the sweet spot of the Pensacola Chamber, really seeking to, and certainly Baptist Healthcare, my employer as well, seeking to improve the quality of life for all citizens, but then also to make sure that our businesses are on solid footing when they think about their talent for the future. What I'm most excited about the Escambia Children's Trust, which is the name of the Children's Services Council here that we are going to talk to you about today, is that it would become a sustainable source of funding for us that is governed by us. So today, for any sort of programs that I call that are in the spaces in between, anytime we are trying to bring a program that brings high school, tech center, state college, and university together, or that brings prenatal up through kindergarten readiness to third grade reading. That is spaces in between. We are trying to thread together several federal and state funding streams. In this case, and when we do that, we are then beholden to the governance requirements of those funding streams. To me, what the opportunity with Escambia Children's Trust is to create a sustainable pool of funding that we as a community get to direct toward the programs that are yielding results in the areas that we believe to be the highest priority focus, because they will have the greatest opportunity to impact every child's opportunity for a pathway to prosperity, and on the business side, ensuring that every citizen is part of that available talent pool that is skilled and ready to help us take our organizations to the next level, and our local economy to that next level. So that's what I'm most excited about. We're here to educate you today. Many of you are already educated and can help all of us get educated further. We know as a community, we have learned, I would say in the last 5 years, how much better we are when we are all pulling in the same direction, when we set a common vision, a common goal, and align our resources to achieve that goal. And I really believe that an Escambia Children's Trust funding system and the governance that comes along with it will help us all move toward those goals faster together than we would if we were independent or didn't have this locally governed funding source. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim Krupa, the Executive Director. I'm sorry, let me go back. I'm going to turn it over to the amazing Kim Krupa. Let me properly introduce her. Kim has been in our community for a few short years, but has had immeasurable impact on our community in the short time that she's been here. She is the director of Achieve Escambia. She is an interim, somewhat helper director for Achieve Healthy Escarosa as well, and has certainly been instrumental in helping to move forward the Escambia Children's Trust. And so at this time, Kim, I'd invite you to introduce yourself and say a few words and share your screen.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that awesome overview, Todd and Jennifer. It is nice to see so many happy, familiar faces on the call, and I appreciate the Chamber also sending this out to the membership at large for those who can't join us live. This is the moment of our lifetime, and that's not exaggerating. This is really a once-in-a-lifetime situation that we're facing, trying to get this Escambia Children's Trust not only on the ballot, but passing with overwhelming success from the voters of Escambia County. It is a real privilege to be working on behalf of Achieve Escambia. You know, for a long time, we were really micro-focused on getting a handle on the needs in our community. What does the data say? What are the gaps and cracks? How are people living these experiences of not getting services, being on wait lists, in some cases for years, having to leave the county for services, missing critical moments to kind of change a child's life, get them on a level playing field with their peers. What we see in the Escambia Children's Trust is an opportunity to actually invest in solutions. There are a lot of us on this call who are really tired of being status quo. And we think it's time to lift up this community once and for all. And we see Escambia Children's Trust as the solution, as a generational solution to transform our community, to make us top in Florida, not bottom in Florida, and that we can do this, that we've got local talent, we've got local passion, control, and ability to make the kind of change happen that we've long wanted. We do want this to be interactive. Lico called this a virtual forum, and we really do want this to be back and forth, especially with a more consolidated group joining us live. So if people want to interrupt, ask questions, write something in the chat box, please do that. That way we can make sure we're addressing points that are top of mind for all of you. This is a really timely call. We've got a critical milestone coming up, several of them. First is tonight, we're on the City Council agenda. The last item on the agenda is a resolution in support of the Children's Trust. The council considered it on Monday and received it fairly well. It's kind of a last minute resolution that was added to the agenda for tonight. It's modeled after the school board resolution that unanimously passed last month. with a 5-0 vote in support of the Children's Trust. And then we are on the Committee of the Whole agenda on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. And then we're in the public agenda for the County Commission and the meeting after that on Thursday morning. And all of that leading up to what will hopefully be a July 2nd County Commission vote to put the Escambia Children's Trust on the November 3rd ballot. That's a handful, and it's a lot of moving parts. We wouldn't be here without our awesome coalition of supporters, one of them being the Chamber of Commerce, one of our early endorsers, pre-COVID, I think, by a couple days. It was one of the last face-to-face meetings I remember going to. But the first thing I wanted to share was our current list. Oh, Liko, if you could enable screen sharing, I'll share our current list of supporters. We just sent this to the County Commission an hour ago. So you all have a sneak peek of what will be on the agenda when it's published.
Okay, you are the host now, so you should be able to.
Awesome. So here's our current list of supporters. This is not all the people who wrote letters. That's a separate list of 170 people. We're hoping to get 200 or 250 letters by the time the July 2nd County Commission meeting rolls along. But I just wanted to share this because it's been a pretty powerful list that has recently gotten us even more support. So folks seeing this list really take comfort in the fact that this has breadth and depth, top to bottom, east to west, all parts of our county, people coming out in support of this from all walks of life, many different businesses, many leaders, current and retired, but still influential, military, law enforcement, various agencies and individuals, elected leaders, faith leaders, military, the list goes on. As you can see, number 75 is the additional 160 letters of support. So one of the big asks is if your name is not on this list and you want it to be, whether you're a business leader or an individual who's passionate about our future workforce, to get in touch with us after this call and make sure we can add you to that number, whether it's on this list or as an individual writing a letter of support. It's been a really powerful case that we've been able to make to the County Commission. We are hopeful / confident, knocking on wood and all of that, that we will successfully get this on the ballot. We've had several great calls with our county leadership. It might even be a unanimous vote, but we've had a lot of great developments this week, great conversations. And frankly, it's this list of mostly business leaders who are helping us sell this to the County Commission as a worthwhile investment and as something that we need to do to secure and ensure our future. So I'll take that down and I'll segue over to the presentation. Oh, try that again. So some of you on the live call have seen this before. I'm not going to run through it in great depth, but we will share this afterwards along with the frequently asked questions that are a good summary. I think we're up to 7 pages on our frequently asked questions. That will be a precursor to information that will be on our website when we launch our website later in July, after some of these critical milestones are achieved. For those of you who don't know what a Children's Services Council is, it's a pretty unique thing that not a lot of people know about. So you're in good hands. It's a special thing Florida has had going on for decades. And really it's because we're not adequately investing in children's services as a state. So what counties did in the 70s and 80s is lobby the legislature to pass legislation saying counties could tax themselves and create a dedicated independent taxing district whose sole focus is investing in children's services. So this is a unique ability of county voters to create this independent authority that invests in gaps in children's services. For a long time, Florida was the only state that had this type of legislation available to county voters, but recently Colorado passed legislation. And I believe there are 2 Florida counties putting referendums on their ballots in 2020 for the first time, but we're still on the map as the only state with actual dedicated county funds. Across the state, there are 9 counties that have these independent taxing districts, and 2 additional in Jacksonville and Manatee County have what's called a dependent, where they're part of county government, or they're a hybrid, where they might have a millage, but then they're also part of county government. What we're talking about here is an independent district that reports directly to taxpayers. It's overseen by a 10-member council that is on the next slide. But briefly, they serve many roles in the counties where they exist. They're really local solutions tailored to local problems. So there's no prescriptive one-size-fits-all way to handle these taxpayer dollars. The investments are made based on an independent needs assessment that's typically done every 3 to 5 years. We would do our local needs assessment immediately following passage of the referendum. And then investment decisions are made based on that objective assessment. And so the Children's Services Councils are really this independent body that's not subject to political whims or earmarks or pet projects. They make contractual investments in programs that are proven to fill specific gaps. And if they don't, that contract is revoked and that funding could be rescinded. So it's way different than anything we have going on right now. And I think these checks and balances have been a huge part of why the Children's Services Councils are so successful. Some common areas, although they all are tailored locally, there are some themes that we see in our Children's Services Councils across the state. Early care and education was mentioned by Todd in his opening remarks, along with workforce education, the future of our workforce that Jennifer mentioned. Also issues, I know Bruce is on the call, gaps in quality early child care and quality education, also child development services for children with special needs and disabilities, child welfare, mental health, reducing child abuse and these toxic cycles of abuse and neglect that we see in our kids and families. We mentioned the oversight. This is just a brief snapshot of what oversight looks like and who is the who on the CSC board. It's 5 and 5. So 5 are positional and then 5 are appointed by the governor. And the positional leaders can also rotate. So a school board member could serve a 4-year term and then that school board seat can go to another school board member, and similarly for the county commission representative. The sitting members being the juvenile court judge or the superintendent of schools now, who used to be elected. That would have been an elected position, now will be appointed. But the juvenile court judge could also rotate. And then the sitting one is the DCF circuit representative for Region 1. And then, of course, aggressive accountability. Everything under sunshine, extensive reporting, and also program monitoring, where every program that's a recipient of CSC dollars has to sign up for a whole lot of auditing, lots of programmatic reviews, site visits, compliance reports that all become part of the public record to kind of create that proof, the evidence trail that this investment is leading to this outcome that's improving this life. And then together, all of these investments are lifting up this particular benchmark, such as kindergarten readiness, 3rd grade reading, juvenile delinquency prevention, high school graduation, career readiness.
Hey, Kim, it's Todd. Just
I don't have the chat open in case anyone's asking anything.
Yeah, so I was just going to add, I know Alachua County recently had their board members approved by the governor. And did you want to maybe mention what types of folks that the governor appointed and put in those roles, just so to give an idea of what other folks might be on the CSC?
That is a great question. The governor just appointed, to give you an idea, Alachua passed in November 2018, and the governor just made the 5 appointments in February or March. And then the 5 that were sitting already, not the governor appointed, had been meeting all along because the county attorney determined that 5 is the majority and that they could be making decisions while they waited for the governor appointees. So they went ahead and hired their executive director, who started in February. I don't know the 5 that the governor appointed, if someone could pull that up. I believe one of them was a faith leader who was pretty active in the pre-campaign space. It took them 6 years to get this on the ballot. And it was a faith leader who had been active in these conversations for a long time. I'm not sure who the others are, though. Sorry about that. I know that they have met at least once since the governor appointed the other 5. But, you know, we've been able to learn, because there are so many cases across Florida, we've been able to learn a lot of lessons from these peers. One lesson we're learning from Alachua is that they ran a great campaign, but they didn't really think about what success looked like after the campaign. So they've been having to kind of play catch up to a lot of what we've been able to accomplish in Escambia County through the work that we've been doing collectively for a number of years. So Alachua is actually having us present to their Children's Services Council at an upcoming meeting on our process. How do we determine what matters in terms of children's success, workforce success in Escambia County? How do we kind of come together around determining that kindergarten readiness, school readiness is a critical milestone, that 3rd grade reading is like the thing that will give us the success that we want for our adults in the workforce later in life? Like, how do we all come together on deciding what to measure and what to kind of rally around? They haven't done that. They did a successful campaign, but they didn't think through the process of making investments. So I think that will put us, I think that has put us at an advantage in an accelerated campaign, and then also will give us a lot of success in the months after. Whereas they had almost an entire year of pause, we're going to be able to execute right away. Just a quick snapshot of 3 peers, 3 of those 9 peers, and what their breakdown looks like. The bottom part, how many programs are they investing in, how many children are they reaching, and in what areas they decided to elevate based on their needs assessment. Not going to read these in depth, just looking at the highlights. What kind of change can we expect to see? An important part of Children's Services Council funding is that it's not a one-off annual type of grant that a lot of our programs are used to. These are sustained investments over a number of years to achieve the types of bold outcomes that will be in the request for proposals, and part of the contractual obligation to lift up certain indicators by certain amounts, by certain timeframes, is what will all be spelled out. And so in that sort of aggressive, I'm going to invest in this, I'm also going to support your ability to execute these goals, and then I'm going to make sure that you're not only supported, but doing the thing that needs to happen to, you know, keep kids off the streets and out of jails, to keep kids in school and reading on grade level, and then reducing family violence. This is an informational that is a handout for the County Commission meeting next week. The thing to look at is the red, Escambia County. We don't want Escambia County to be in the red. We're tired of getting worse and going downhill. And frankly, that's a situation that we're in. We were 6th in child abuse a couple of years ago. We're now 4th. We were 41st in child well-being. We're now 47th. And we are trending in the wrong direction. Even though we might be getting a little bit better locally, we're not getting better as quickly as we need to, and as competitively as we need to, as fast as other Florida counties are getting better. we're pretty much stagnant, and it makes us look even worse. Even though internally we might be improving, we're just not improving at a quick enough pace. So for example, absence has improved a little bit, but this is nothing to brag about. And comparatively, we're worse. We see the same thing in juvenile arrests and child abuse. We're negative. That negative means we're getting better in child abuse. But look at the other counties that have children's services councils. And making those critical investments and evidence-based programs is what has turned that around. And the bottom slides are just examples of what specifically the investment was in that they're correlating to this improvement. So lots of data there that don't try to read because we're going to fly through this. The self-harm on the left is what that means. And to just digest that number, it's a huge number of our teenagers who are self-harming. This is one that is getting worse. And then infant death rate is perpetually stagnant in Escambia County. And if you break this down by race and by geography, you can really start to see the disparities that exist in Escambia County. So we have a case for support. We've got a lot of this outlined in the FAQ that we'll be following up with the members. And also this packet will be part of the Escambia County Commission agenda packet for Tuesday and Thursday's meeting. But just to know that this is independently considered a good investment, a good value with a huge return. One thing that we've learned is that a lot of our Children's Services Council peers actually draw down on a lot of matching funds. So for every dollar invested, for example, in St. Lucie County, they're able to draw down on 70 cents. Here's that example in the second bullet, using their about the same as we would collect, 8.3 million, to draw down on almost 6 million in matching funds. And that was for 2019 program year. And that's a point that we didn't necessarily enter this space a year ago thinking about matching funds, but have been taught from a lot of our program providers how they can leverage these local dollars to draw down federal, state, and other investments. Some more FAQ on how what the funding looks like. It is an ad valorem property tax up to $500,000, and that's part of the state statute. It will be part of the 2021 tax roll, which is paid in 2022. And then here's specifics on the funding. The trust would be subject to the 4% tax collection fee. And that's part of the 10% overhead that we're estimating. So 90% of the 8.2 million will go directly to children's programs, with the 10% including the 4% in tax, and then the staffing, the oversight, and the overhead that would need to be part of the accountability baked into this. $40 for the average homeowner. District 3 would pay the lowest. It's about $17. And District 4 would pay the highest, just under $60. But the bulk of it, over 60% of this tax, would be paid for by commercial property owners to the tune of $67 per property. So the business community endorsing this is hugely powerful because the business community is carrying the majority of the tax burden associated with the Escambia Children's Trust, which makes that list of supporters even more powerful, that they're putting their money where their mouth is, truly. And this is unprecedented in Children's Services Council campaigns to have that list right out of the gate before it's even on the ballot. So yay for the chamber leadership, for the minority chamber, for the business leaders who believe in education as the future of our community. I mentioned the 90%, the RFP, a lot of this is points I already made. What accountability looks like and the corrective status if certain outcomes aren't met or covered on this slide. Quite a few Children's Services Councils have withdrawn their support and their funding based on a program's inability to execute what they said they would do in the contract. It's pretty common across Children's Services Council communities. Another thing that we learned is that because this is a reimbursed contract on a monthly basis, the program has to prove that they delivered on what they said they would. The CSC cuts the check as a reimbursement of costs incurred, but often programs don't incur the costs that they thought they would. So that creates a spillover fund. And in 3 counties, St. Lucie, Martin, and Palm Beach, those spillover funds have been collected for years, decades. Often they're put to use after disasters, so those surplus funds become part of disaster response. But with COVID-19, they were able to turn those funds into COVID-19 relief and recovery funds that programs could apply to kind of make themselves whole and continue service delivery to clients and communities. Even though, you know, all these precautions had to be in place, they were still able to open the doors in the homeless shelter, keep the lights on, and serve children in childcare. Whether it was through childcare salary subsidies, incentives to keep childcares open, which is what happened in Miami. They've been able to use these surplus funds in really creative ways. But it was astonishing to me that through this process, the programs aren't drawing down 100% on their CSC dollars because of the rigorous checks and balances that are in place. I'm not sure what the time check is. If we have time to go through, I think I'll just share this overview slide of what we're prioritizing as our investments, and then let the handout speak for itself about what specifically investments in these areas look like. Does that sound good? This model is based on, I love the emojis. I just learned how to do that. This is from Palm Beach, St. Lucie, and Martin. Palm Beach, this is how Palm Beach started. Their investment breakdown was 40-20-40. Now they're 75% birth to 5. So they've changed their focus area on the later years as they sort of course corrected in the early years, which I thought was really fascinating. But in the beginning, this is what it looked like. They felt like they had to invest across the entire birth to 18 until they got a handle on the birth to 5. They could pull back their investments in the youth development programs, partner with other agencies like United Way, the city, the county, to handle the older kids while they focus on the younger kids. So, but right now, St. Lucie and Martin, this is what their breakdown is as well. And they've got about similar size population and demographics. So we're not looking at watering down these funds. We really want to make targeted investments in critical gaps. And that $8 million can go really quick. I was talking to Bruce Watson the other day with Early Learning Coalition. His budget is $21 million. He is the largest nonprofit organization by far in Escambia County. $21 million for school readiness and voluntary pre-kindergarten. And how quickly that could go. Our school district budget is $300 million. So we want to really be cautious about how to use this $8 million to the maximum effectiveness, and really think that this breakdown makes the most sense. So the other slides that accompany this are color-coded with kindergarten readiness examples. What that would look like, 40% of about $8 million. And what are some of the critical gaps that we would be investing in through this transparent process of a request for proposals and programs really competing to show that they can deliver a certain level of results that would lead to this big outcome area of school readiness. And I don't want to take up too much time reading through these, but there are programs that would be new to our community, but there are also programs that are already working that we need to be doing more of. So in the slide deck and also the notes, we've got lots of examples of programs that are new, like Help Me Grow, and programs that are working, like this 3-year-old preschool at CA Weiss Community School, and delivering us a certain level of outcomes that we cannot scale right now with our current funding streams. And I think I just have 1 or 2 slides here for the Ready Youth bucket area. We've got a lot of gaps in youth programming, career readiness, internships, apprenticeships, workforce skill building, and the after school hours for our youth, particularly the middle school to high school. Youth area is woefully lacking in lots of areas of Escambia County, if not all of them. And then some example of a small intervention that works really well in Stuart, Florida, targeting misdemeanor offenses among 6 to 17-year-olds, getting them kind of triaged into an after-school program that's a partnership with the sheriff, the police. And that's really, this program has single-handedly reduced Martin County's juvenile crime rate by 43%. And so not everything is, millions of dollars. There are certain little levers of investments that we're looking at making on programs that are proven to work elsewhere that we could easily do here. And then this last slide on Ready Families, huge space. Families are really hard to tackle. It's a lot of behavior change. It's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing to talk about. And people in programs don't really like to talk about families in the home, but that's really where change happens. And Children's Services Council dollars go to the home, stabilizing families, breaking cycles of abuse and neglect, and just tackling the hard issues of our society head on. So smaller number reached here, big investment, but intergenerational impact in the family stabilizing space. A lot of programs here are already working. We just need to be doing more of them, and following up with long-term case management is really the secret sauce here. So the road ahead, we covered a lot of what's next in my overview, and then some more talking points about ROI and drawing down on matching funds, and how prevention, an ounce of prevention, is actually tangible savings for Escambia County agencies. And that top highlighted bullet, I think, is pretty powerful. I think that was my last slide. We have a phone number and we have a mailing address. We have a goal of raising $130,000 for the campaign. Right now we're at $40,000 as of today. And so we have quite a long way to go, but we also recognize that we need to get this on the ballot before we really go into full-time campaign fundraising mode. And so we're taking that seriously. Let's get this shored up and pass. Let's all feel confident that this is going to get on the ballot. Let's get it on the ballot, and then we can go after the real campaigning that needs to take place. And then we would start that public phase after the primaries, likely after Labor Day, just to give you an idea of the timeline coming up. So you can all consider yourselves early adopters. This is a sneak peek of what's to come. We don't expect Escambia Children's Trust to be a household word, but hopefully by the end of September, it will start to be. And then we'll have overwhelming success on November 3rd.
That's great, Kim. Thank you so much for that very thorough overview. As Kim mentioned, everybody, we will send out a copy of the slides as well as a frequently asked questions document that we have to you. And at this point, let's open it up for questions. Anybody have questions, comments? I'd also be interested in anybody's thoughts on angles that we might need to be prepared to handle as we go before the county commission and really proceed to build the army of support for this initiative.
Hey, I've got a question. Kim, when you had showed those statistics on where we rank in abuse, I guess we were 4th in the state. How are those numbers measured? Is it a standard for each area that is reporting those? Because my concern is say, for instance, we have maybe better reporting or we have better systems, like we have Gulf Coast Kids House reporting those things. Is it a standard that those are measured by, or is it individual?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's on Florida Health Charts, which I encourage everyone to use or dig into to just fact find for yourself. The state as it is in Escambia County. So it's the recent Florida Health Charts upload. So it's a report that goes to the state and then is translated into a really interactive database on a lot of different indicators.
And so, Liko, to your question, sadly, it is a consistent standard. We are comparing apples and apples. And in fact, we do fall really in most child outcomes, we fall in the bottom quarter of all 67 counties in the state of Florida. It is a persistent, consistent challenge that we face. So we really believe the Escambia Children's Trust funding, but really the structure of lots of voices input into the process and the accountability focused on moving those measurable outcomes really is what will help us gain improvements as we seek to build family capacity in our community that really, I think, long-term can help raise all boats and really help all children have that path to prosperity. I wish we were just better measurers. Any other questions or comments? Brian, thank you for your comment in the chat box. It is, he's saying next week is a critical step. It absolutely is. We are looking forward to that. And we really, next week, are certainly, as the first hurdle, seeking their leadership in putting this on the ballot and really taking it to the voters to decide on whether or not, as a community, we want to make this investment in our future. We also, of course, are seeking to gain their buy-in, but the first step is getting it on the ballot.
And those meetings are both open to the public. I know the city council is virtual only, but the county commission is social distancing their meetings next week. So if you want to come and kind of represent your support, we would love to have you in the room. It'll be part of, Jennifer will be presenting along with Walker Wilson. Trying to see if anyone else on the call will be presenting, but we would love to have as many folks in the room as the room can handle. We're not going to be wearing a single color, but we will be all standing to show our support at one point during our combined presentation.
Anything else? All right, well, thank you again for your time and attention, and mostly for your passion for this community. I think that's what we have in common. We all love this community. I know it's certainly been amazing to me and my family, my 4 boys that I've raised here, and certainly look forward to continuing to partner with all of you to improve the quality of life for everyone in this community, and believe this to be a really important tool in our toolkit as we seek to do that together. As you leave here, if anything pops in your mind and you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me, jennifer.grove@bhcpns.org, and I will make sure that we get you your answers. If you think of other groups that we can educate on this topic or answer questions that they have, we would love to have that opportunity. So please share that information as well. And please look in your inboxes to receive the documentation that will follow, that will help you hopefully be an advocate with us for the Escambia Children's Trust as we move forward. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. And I just want to say as we close, thank you, Kim, and thank you, Jennifer, for your leadership and getting, being a part of the team that's gotten us to where we are now. As you said, next week's a big week, and hopefully we'll be successful there, and then we'll move on to the next step. But it's been a tremendous effort, and we're very excited and look forward to moving forward. So thank you, and you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.